everybody. Welcome back to the Canyon. Welcome back to the sort of beginning of another It Came From the Workbench series. This should technically be an It Came From the live stream, but I got very little. Here's what we did. In the live stream, most recent to when I'm recording this, we did a little bit of choose your own adventure in which I dug through the parts bins, starting with a Mias chassis, just the rails, and the people of the chat, the followers of the Canyon, selected basically all the components of the vehicle that will be It Came From the Workbench 57. So as mentioned, Mias Gold Rush chassis, they chose Amazon Digbox, 1080 plus the NHX Momentum Big Block, which is the same as the Surpass, it's just a different color. This is the 20 turn, which should be pretty good because we're sitting on straight axles, so we won't have a ton of reduction. The straight axles are SSD Diamond Pro elements, so they have all of the element bits on the inside, which means this vehicle will have no underdrive overdrive. Now, these are SSD Diamond Pros, so they can be fitted with AR44 gears if we should decide to do that in the future. Then they selected a body, Element Trail Walker, with its huge slab size and its tiny fender wells. And we went through it in a pretty good order, but kind of blind as to what it was going to come out. We never picked a color. We did pick a wheel. These Trial 10 holes, very nice with the silver hardware. Megalithics were just auto chosen because of the Class 1 tires that I have up on the tire rack. These are the guys. And we went with Class 1 because look at how slabby that is. Now, this body can be cut out to fit a Class 2 tire, 4.5, 4.6. So there's no guarantee that this is going to be the forever tire. We would like this to be the first representative of Canyon, what we called Class 1 Plus, because, I mean, it's got dig in it. That's not a Class 1 thing. It's got a Lexan body on it. That's not a Class 1 thing. But I don't have to follow the rules. I get to make my own rules. It's pretty great. So we're now beginning the entry into the iterative process. Oh, chassis mounted steering. It's going to be chassis mounted steering. That's going to be a fun part to sort out because none of this stuff was explicitly designed to go with any of the other stuff. Shocks also, we don't know. What I have to do first, we've got to dive deep. We've got to go through all the bins and bags and everything else. The first things that need be picked when you're doing any of this sort of shenaniganery is front lower links. We're using the jig. The wheelbase is set at about 313. During the live stream, I thought it was 300. I lined the tires up. I basically put a tire in each wheel well like this, and I measured, and it looks like it was 300. But maybe I had the axles twisted. I don't know. Because once it went in the jig, the wheelbase is indeed, yep, and it is indeed 313. I get the feeling that this body is going to get carved up a bit. Look at how... but it does have a lot of room to cut. And I do know that there's one of the versions, it's the Scratch and Sniff, I think, comes on 4.65s. So we should be able to fit 4.65s on here. I like the look of the body. It's nice and wide. We ended up on the axle with these Trail 10 holes. They are 235 wide outside to outside. And the body is 210. So that's pretty good. That's not a ton of wheel on the outside. Canyon Class 1 Plus appears to be 419s, chassis mounted steering, full body. So like the J Concepts K10, you know, full bodies, Vanquish Origin, full bodies. Because we've been falling into a pattern of building a lot of cab vehicles. And cabs are a little bit of kind of like cheating. It's not really cheating, but you can go the old 330, you can make your wheelbase whatever you want. The full body with the full fenders, we're not going to be able to run bumpers. I don't think I can make bumper a requirement for C1 Plus because look at the length. This chassis is 365 millimeters end to end. And this body, 470. There's like the bumper would be. I mean, I'm not ruling it out. There is a possibility. I have lathes. I have the ability to fabricate things. If we have a bumper that looks like it'll line up perfectly, we'll hang that thing. But before we get to that, we've got to figure out where is the panhard going to mount. I don't have any of the bits and pieces of this chassis. I haven't fully dug the bins. I might have a panhard mount that's reasonably suitable for this. So far, I have this one. There's a Vanquish somewhere on this workbench. Okay, I had that one. Somewhere on this workbench is a Vanquish mount. I can probably locate an element mount. Regardless, things are going to have to get trimmed. Maybe holes are going to have to get drilled. We will get a panhard mount on here. And also, oh, it's sitting on the axle. It's a good way to lose that. Because it's a Diamond Pro, so fully modular, if clearances demand it, and I don't think they will because the drive shaft is over on this side, on a center pumpkin, I was going to say we could flip it. We could go Toyota style where the panhard, the chassis mount is on this side, and then the panhard runs that way, and then the upper link's over here. But I don't think we're going to need to. The Amazon Dig Box has got pretty good clearance all around. The only thing that it looks like we might potentially be sacrificing is it doesn't look like we'll be able to get to probably those two uppermost forwardmost holes because they're right in the end hole of the motor. Other side looks like it'd be fine. So, and the drive shaft's in far enough. This is another one of those things when you're building from the bins, when you're fabric cobbling it together, you kind of got to go. You go with what you got. That pinion angle in the front, honestly, let me get down a little low here. That honestly looks pretty close. I would hope to be sitting right about there at ride height. That's about where I want to be. So what I'm doing is I'm looking at the space between the upper link mounts and the chassis rails. Yeah, right about there. And then I'm going to try to locate something, and the something is usually a tire foam. Reach up, grab some tire foams. We want a little bit squishier. Because what I want to do is get this loosely placed, and we can kind of, that's a little high. It's not a lot of high. Sometimes we can weight it down and crush the foam down enough to get it to do what we want. This is all very scientific. Like that, that's pretty close. I'm basically looking at lower link mount line to lower link mount line on the axle, and I want them about level because I want to set my link length with them level. Because we're pivoting in the center, wheelbase is kind of dynamic. It is going to lengthen and shorten depending on our articulation. So when it is neutral, I want this thing to sit neutrally in between the fenders at about 313. So now I've got to wrangle my way. I've got to find. This is why you end. If you're doing this a lot, you end up with rulers of all kinds of different lengths. We're probably going to be under this length right here, right there, and this one is basic. We begin with a guess. And it looks like, gotta make sure we're right there and right there. It looks like it's about 118, which is a little low. Now let me see. Can we scooch the chassis a little forward? We can. Okay, so we know where it's sitting now is 118. And where's that servo? If the horn is forward, yeah, that horn would have to be way forward. We need to go quite a bit further forward out like this. We want to have the axle a little bit covered, right about there, maybe? Yeah, it's a little closer. I would like to see, okay, we sat at 118. Okay, that's 110. That's dead 110. We're gonna go off of 110. We're gonna throw a flyer at it. That is, and whenever I make a mention of a measure, when I speak of links, I'm speaking of eye-to-eye measure. Then we get into the process of what we'll start. We always begin with a Traxxas short. And we put those down next to a ruler at 110 eye-to-eye. And then we'll measure what link is that. So that's a 75. That's a 75 link. And when I talk about link lengths, I don't talk about the overall length of a link. Length of a length. Linkly linkle. So here is a good one to show. This is a factory team. This is an 83. It is, come on, there it is. It's marked 83. Now when they talk about length measurements, they are talking about the whole thing. Right? So, copy this up. 8294. So it's 83. When you hear me talk about link lengths, I'm talking about shoulder to shoulder. So this is basically a 60 millimeter link. So we need one that is on that shoulder 75 millimeters if we do indeed decide to use those rod ends. So then what we do is we dig through additional bins. I'm looking for 4 millimeter bent. And some of my favorite rod ends, as this looks like it's going to be a mix, a fairly even mix of Mias, Element, and just whatever comes out of the bins. We'll grab some Element angled ends. And if we're running angled ends in the front, again, still looking at a 110 eye-to-eye, give or take, it does not have to be precise at this point. That one needs shoulder to shoulder 65. 65 and 75 are not super common. But I've got to have some. Dug into the high clearance bin and had 75s. I believe they are RC Lions. That will serve the purpose. That means that now we have a choice to make. We can either get real retentive about it and try to use the same rod end throughout the vehicle, which is a fun exercise in basically wanting to scream at yourself, or we can embrace the parts bin nature of this where nothing is going to match really. We hope for high clearance rears. I have plenty of those to go through, and they look like they're going to be a good bit longer. There is a lot of philosophy out there as to what your length differential should be front to rear. Basically, all we know is you don't want your front links longer than your rear links. And if you want to crawl with it, you kind of don't want your front links to be the same length as your rear links. There needs to be this differential for the weight bias, and we are indeed building a rock crawler. That's what the purpose of this is. And there are some things that are still question marks, but there are some things that I think we're pretty confident in. Ball stud. You end up with a lot of these. The problem being here, this is Element at one end. I will have to caliper the chassis. I know that the installment point at the axle is a 7.5. So we're going to try to get these. I mean, I could have gone plastics. I probably should have gone plastic rod ends. Hollow balls. I have so many. Don't be fooled. Element offers you the little Delrin. You know what? Functionally, they're absolutely fine. They work great. The problem is, you over tighten the screw that holds that down just one time, and that's a crush washer. It's effectively, just throw it away now, because the plastic will, like we have this shape and it goes, it flares out, and now it's really tight in the rod end, which can be used to your benefit in that if your rod ends are starting to get loose, a little loosey-goosey, you can put a plastic rod end in and crank it down. It is 7.5. It's 7.5 both ends. Now, what I have is regrets. We may end up swapping out rod ends because a lot of manufacturers like to go to a slightly bigger ball on the rod end. These are 5.7s. They like to go to 5.8s. But if you put a 5.8 in a 5.7 rod end, it's really tight. And if you put a 5.7 in a 5.8 rod end, it rattles around. This is one of those instances where it'd be really nice if they could agree on any kind of standard, but we do not, under any circumstances, hold our breath for that. I'm looking at the bin. I think I've got enough 5.7 by 7.5s, and if it comes down to needing, because we actually only need 2, 4, we only need 8. Yeah, we can swing 8. I like the Traxxas, what we just call Traxxas shorts. I like the Traxxas short rod end. They are easily found, often imitated. The Vanquish ends are just that, but pretty nice. Let's get this through here. I would also, my ultimate preference would not be a metal skid. I'm not a huge fan of metal skids. We need to get this front link installed because we need to find out if we do need angled rod ends. This is a fairly decent amount of front triangulation, meaning that these links at rest are going to, they're going to be V'd out quite a bit. It might be too much for this rod end, because what you don't want is you don't want your link, you don't want the rod end in a static position to be all the way over. See, we're stopped there because we're actually hitting the chassis. Now, this is an Amazon no-buck chassis to mount the gearbox to. If it looks like we've got enough clearance, we're not getting to the point where the ball wants to pop out of the rod end because of this. We're hitting physical metal. It's not a problem to take a Dremel to that and widen those out so that we get the clearance we need. That looks like if we're right about there, we'll be fine. That's perfectly acceptable. Anything kind of beyond that, and I would want to go to an angled rod end. I installed one backwards. Naturally. There we go. At least I had the other one right side up. There we go. So now we're going to slap it on the axle. We're going to see where it sits. It gets a little more messy now because the chassis is going to want to move. So we want to kind of rough set. I think we might be able to slide the pin right under the BTA. I'm hoping to retain the element BTA. Okay, that's pretty close. That's real slamorama right there. Also, the BTA requires your shock. Okay, these shocks are going to be laid way down. Way down. If we go from the top position, so at full extension, we'd be, yeah, this is going to be running on, looks like 90s. We want to be right about there. Okay. Now, what we need to do is, we need to find a lower link length for the rear that does not move anything. We'll go from right there. 1. Make sure we're lined up. 132. No, we weren't lined up. Right there. It's like 137. Now, the split on it, it's really close. I don't think we're gonna get. I think it's all right on the shorts. we're going to progress forward, operating under the impression that we're going to be using Traxxas shorts, because you can buy them by big old bags. Should you have to, you can buy them by big old bags. But drawer 1 of shorts, drawer 2 of shorts. I'm actually going through these a little bit. This is why there's the potential we might be switching to Mias ends. We might move forward on Mias ends, because I have so many. And they use 5.8 millimeter. They use these, which I probably have 2,000 of. That's how this whole thing works. It is, on the one hand, it's unfortunate, but I believe these will use a 70 instead of a 75, so we can. This is the part that doesn't get shown, because it's just over and over and over and over again, and we have to finalize 4 links because they set the wheelbase. The uppers are just helping us with anti-squat and determining our pinion angle, but we've got to get the lowers in place. So we're still gonna operate from the perspective of Traxxas shorts, because we don't need that many. And if we are running Traxxas shorts on this, we need it's basically a 105. Yeah, it's a 105. And RC Lions comes through once again. Those are, let's grab the tool. It's a little tougher to measure the length of high clearance links. They want to go rogue on you. So this is originally for Schul's, for Shock's RPM shock duplication tool. You set it to 0 down at the bottom with a little pointer, and you look up at the top, and we are at 137.5. Also why this is valuable and why everyone should own one if you can still get a hold of them, because I think RPM has discontinued it for whatever reason. I have no idea why things get discontinued. Makes no sense. Makes no earthly sense to me. You put both. You put one on each side, and then you look down at the bottom, and that gauge is pointed dead at the 0. So we know that we have 2 137.5s, or they are within less than half of a millimeter of one another. Because if you have too much length on one side and the other, it's gonna mess everything up. It's cascading, because geometry is a powerful series of triangles, and when one thing goes the wrong way, everything follows. So I want that. I thought I put these in. I did. We're good. Just hang tight. We're good. So far, we're good. We're gonna get links installed. We're gonna get no less than 8. The setting up of the front end with the panhard is deeply problematic, because we have so many different aspects that we're all trying to retain parallel. The panhard and the drag link have to be parallel on the X, Y, and Z axes, and it's not fun. Sometimes the universe will just hand you a treat and be like, look at that, it lined up. And we have every opportunity to get that kind of free one from the universe, and we have every opportunity for it to just not do that, because we're not committed to panhard mount, length, type of mount. There's a lot of things we're in control of. We can move the servo mount forward, backward. We can mount the servo so that the servo is at the front with the horn facing backward, wizard style. We can mount it this way with the horn facing forward. We can take this servo mount out and put a Traxxas TRX4 servo mount in it, which will transverse the servo like that. We can put, I don't want to, but we can put a Zoku laydown mount in there, because I don't want to do that because this is the current desired path for the battery. I would really like to put the battery there. We have no chassis sides, we have no skirts, no sliders, we don't have any of that stuff. So we're going to have to build a little bracket to hold the 1080 speed control that's going to operate this. We have the bracket. I designed this bracket and had some cut. This is what I use to hold the micro servo to actuate my dig mechanism. Then we got to get into body mounts. This is sort of building from scratch, kind of. This is the way. This is really the way I like to do it. This is my preferred technique. Can we? Hey. The chassis jig is not a necessity, but it is very helpful. Well and truly. Because it will keep things in place for you. And now, see, this is, when you measure, you're trying to get that angle down. The angle is not always down. So, let me pull this out. Make sure that that's not what's causing it. Now we're going to lift this up. And we're going to rotate this into place. And we're going to say, that is, all I need is a third hand. I need 2 more arms. That is precisely to the millimeter 10 millimeters too short. So it's not a 137, it's a 147. Not mad about it, because if that's 110 and that's 147, that's a good split. Now, allow me to confuse it further. If that 110 front, and now we know 147 rear, and we know how to get to the 147 rear. Remember how these are 10 millimeters longer? If I take those exact lengths and put these rod ends on them, it will transform that suspension length from a 137 into a 147. So that's not a problem. We've got a 75 in the front, which means it doesn't really need to be a high clearance link, 110 total. We know that if these add 10, I just need to find 2 65s, and we can run those all the way around. But what I would do instead, as we know we have to change them, is I will determine what length these need to be. And I want to say they're fairly close. They are fairly close. These have a little receptacle. They have a little socket. They're TRX4 style, where a little bit of the link goes down inside of that, right? But you don't have to. It's still going to get more than enough bite from the threads on the link itself. We're going to operate from the perspective of switching over to Mias. Well, hold on. Hold that thought. We're going to pop the ball out. They all come with 7 millimeter balls. If this 7.5 fits nice, let's see. No, that's really super tight. That's really super tight. That doesn't help us at all. So, I don't really have any motivation to run those, because they all come preloaded with 7 millimeter wide balls. That's not going to help. Yeah. That's why this is so full of them. So, this is my favorite rod end. It is not the most durable, but it has just the perfect right amount of bend. They're nice and slender, so they don't provide this little bit of shoulder. Those little shoulders can hang up. They're little things that we take into consideration as we go. So it's going to be another round of digging in the bins, because, like I say, the OCD will take over. Can I find 65 millimeters for the front? No, let's just swap the rod ends on the rear first. This is one of those processes where if you only have to make the link twice, you feel like, you're like, oh man, I've stumbled upon something magical. we may only have to make this rear link twice, because they did indeed come out to 147.5, exactly 10 millimeters longer than the other end. This is the drawback of building in the jig, but I want to keep it in the jig a little bit longer until we've had time to try to get an approximate length on the uppers. Oh, it's fun. These screws are also too short because you have to use lock nuts to retain these. I might change the link mount to like either the factory team to one of the other link mounts, because it will, I don't need to use a lock nut with those. It depends. It depends. It's not a deal breaker. I'm completely opposed. Now you'll notice that did not move at all. Bring it up, and we would be sitting right about yeah, see, this is let's see if I can lock it. Got to get it rotated just right, because the wheelbase is dynamic. It's trying to change the wheelbase, but we're locked in. And I just want to see, is it nice and loose right there? Not really. We're probably, can I get the rotation? We are probably, this is going to work out. We are about 2 millimeters too long at the front. Because when I rotate this to get the pumpkin angle correct, that actually physically moves a little closer. That's kind of how arcs work. So we're going to want to shorten the front down just a little bit. I did not account for the axle being flopped forward. So we're sitting at 110 on this end. We really need to be about helm to 108. 107, 108 is probably where we want to be. That is a link length of, you only have like 17 rulers. It's still a 65. It's a 65 with a little bit of wiggle room. So I could not get to 108, not with that rod end. I did find some 65. They're actually about 64. We came out like 108.5, so we've got 147.5 in the back, 108.5 in the front, which means we've just cheated the skid forward another couple of millimeters, well, 10 millimeters in the back. And see, now we can rotate the pumpkins while everything's locked in, nothing has moved, and we have a nice, sometimes the difference is a matter of 2 millimeters. Yeah, the front is real nice. Yes. And the angled end is on point, because now it doesn't, I could feel there's no bind to it at all there. We need to set, too tall. Tire? That is pretty close to neutral right there. Okay, and we're going to set it one end at a time, and we're going to start by the front because we only have to do one link. That's the beauty. We're going to get that about where I think it would sit level. We're going to guesstimate-o, and we're going to do the same thing with a ruler. First iteration of the front upper is 115 millimeters eye to eye, which we will see once we're unjigged. We will see how that looks on. Now, generally, if your front upper is longer than your front lower, and this applies to the rear as well, what that's going to do in terms of pinion angle change through the sweep, it's going to stay very arc-like. Oh man. There's got to be a way to illustrate this easily, but I can't think of one off the top of my head. Well, maybe we'll get to that at a later day. Because the links are about actually one is a little bit longer, so it's a little bit like this. When it goes through its sweep, the pinion it's not rotating the pumpkin. It's just sweeping in an arc. It's a sweep like that, which is kind of like, that's how we would like to optimize it. Because in the front end with CMS, we're just trying to get the links to cooperate with one another. In the front end, I want the geometry not to get weird. I don't want axle swing. Well, I want to minimize it. The whole front end pivots around the panhard. We're going to get to that in the next one. Episode 2 of this, we'll get into that. You're deep in the weeds with this one. All we have left to do today is get a pinion angle roughly about where we think it should be. And what we're going to find out right now is how tight can we get into that end bell. So let's start with that one. And I'm going to go right there to right there. And that's a lot more typical. 140-ish. Will probably be 140. Being a little long would be preferable, because then it's just going to give us more rotation on it. And this is an element style axle, so it's center pinion. If we're high pinion, we can get away with more tomfoolery because it's going to move the drive shaft and stuff up higher. We would want to get away with more rock back on that in order to keep the drive shaft. A high clearance link is not effective if your drive shaft is below your high clearance link. But we will start from in the neighborhood of 140, and we may get real lucky. And aside from panhard and drag link, we may end up with the same rod ends all the way around. We've been pretty lucky. Well, that's not luck. That's us. They did the work here. That is base. It wants a 97, which means 95. So it's a 95. It's a 95 millimeter link, which coincidentally, but at the same time not, that is the length of the shorter link that comes with the RC Lions kit. I use a lot of these RC Lions link kits off Amazon. The only thing you don't use from the RC Lions link kit off of Amazon are the rod ends. They're terrible. I would genuinely prefer if they would just sell them without the rod ends. The rod ends are really quite bad. They will break. You will break them. And I mean, these break. I felt like I was doing well. But we have a thin rod end and a thin hollow ball and a thick hollow ball, and I got them transposed. We need to go like that. We need to go like this. Flip that around, and we're going to find out what does the motor clearance look like. We might have to do a little dance to get that end to mount where I want it near the motor. The collective, and I was in agreement, chose brushed. I'm on board with it. The only problem I'm having at this juncture is, if that was a little pancake outrunner, if that was a little 3625, 3632, 3642, shorter than 50, all of our link options would be open to us. So the jig should be holding the axle in such a way as to make it not over rotate. Will I be able to get a nut on there? Ooh. Only just. Only just. Now, how about the other side? So this is upper all the way back. Okay. Will you be able to get a lock nut on there? No. Is there a way around that? Absolutely. But what we're going to do is look at pinion angle first. And it's got that little bit of clock to it. Let's see. Yeah, that's ooh, is maybe a-okay? That's pretty good. That's pretty good. Let's see. Yeah. Could maybe conceivably, while we're here, let's see what it looks like. If we go all the way upper hole in the back, the most link separation. Now, this is when you got to be careful about the height that the axle is sitting at, because you'll put the link on and you'll go, oh, that angle, that pinion angle is terrible, but you'll be at a point where the suspension will not even compress that far. So you need to lift it back up and see, yeah, right there, right, oh yeah, that's pretty good. Regardless, we're going to have slightly sub-optimized pinion angles because single output, non-low profile gearboxes like this, Stealth X will do it now and again. Pretty much all the 3 gears do it. Because that main, the quote-unquote differential gear, the big, let me get one so you can see it. The big guy that's right there. So he's right down there in the bottom. Because of the size of that, right, the gearbox, this output is going to be up a height. It is very different from, take your choice of random low center of gravity gearboxes. It's not huge, but it's kind of huge. We're probably talking 7 or 8 millimeters lower, and this is kind of a big one. The fake Nod 2s will be even lower. I don't have one in the bin that is as low as I would like to show. The Nod 2 OD3, pretty low. It's not massive. It's just you're never going to get that perfect straight. Look at the Stealth XF. Your drive shaft angle is just perfectly straight. It just goes straight in. And that's going to make it smoother. That's going to make it quieter. There's really no drawbacks to a straight drive line. And by straight, I mean in terms of parallelism to the ground. But also kind of, we're going to have what this thing might, depending on how lightly it's sprung, and I don't know how lightly sprung it's going to be as of yet, we might get a little bit of that dip the tail, drop the nose action, what people misdiagnose as torque twist, when in reality what it is this drive shaft is going at about a, I had a protractor here. Oh, we can maybe framing square it. This is never good for me. So if we would want to pivot, wait, we'd want to we'd want to pivot. It's at about a, it's so low I can't even, because it's the flipped opposite, 15 degrees. It's off at about a 15 degree angle, or we'll see opposite. No, it's at about a 15 degree angle. That drive shaft is 15 degrees that way, and that drive shaft is 15 degrees that way. There's going to be an imaginary point in space where basically the rotational motion is fighting against itself. It's a thing that happens. Also, pro tip, when you're doing this and you're installing this link and we can't get the link to go in because the bolt is too long and it is hitting the end bell of the motor, you're already there. You're ahead of me, right? You either take the motor out or you take the gearbox out. When going through the pre-rough like this, I definitely recommend leaving the motor and the full boat installed. Motor, gearbox, everything in there, because now it's not going to good. I just wanted to make sure we weren't in the point where it was actually physically impacting the metal. I should have gone with a ball end driver for that. Now, can go, let's see. I mean, it's close. It's close, but it's looking all right. Let's pop it out the jig. It will be really, you know why? We can pop it out of the jig now? Because we have the 7 necessary links on the vehicle. The panhard's going to allow, lack of panhard's going to allow the front end to flop around, but we have built ourselves a vehicle at this point, and we have no articulatory issues. That pinion sweep looks great in the back. We are loosey-goosey and wide open, which is where you want to be. In the end, when sitting, okay, so ride height will be there. Those pinion angles look pretty good. Now, one could say, well, I think you could go a little longer on the front upper and kick that pinion a little bit more, but I don't want to get it too far out and mess up steering, because we still have to go panhard. And right now, all I'm looking at is axle side panhard mount. So it'll sit right like that. That looks really nice. That looks really nice, and we've got a good nearly 30 millimeters longer in the rear. That's going to help with the bias. It's not properly skid forward. It's more of a mid-skid operation. I want to say that this is the first time I've set up a Mias chassis with just a conventional 3-gear, and the fitment is pretty good. The link mounting situation here is not the fault of Mias at all. Usually there's an FMM right here. And did you just think it? I just thought it. I just thought it. I have done the conversion before where I pipe a forward motor mount into just a standard gearbox. All it does is require me to either replace the top shaft or cut it, carbide drill a hole in it. Here's the question I'm asking myself. If we use the FMM right here, so the FMM would go right there. Son of a... So if the FMM's right there, the only question I have is, oh, it'd be pretty tight. It'd be pretty tight. The only question I have would be, if we opt to pipe FMM into dig box, will that motor clear that front upper? I can get these screws out by hand. If I can get these screws out by hand, nay. Nay, sir, nay. I had not considered FMM because of this chassis was designed to be used with either their nylon axles or their Capra axles. It does come with the apparatus when you buy the full kit. It comes with the apparatus to run it chassis mounted steering. Well, I just want to see how low down this drops. Well, I can already feel it hitting right there, hitting on the motor. Oh, it's I'm gonna say no. I'm gonna say no by a factor of about 3 millimeters. The rear of the can's still a little bit too long, because that's not a transfer case, that's a full gearbox. So the FMM would have to be spaced further forward. It would be cool, but it's not quite going to make it. So we're limiting ourselves in our rear upper link mounting position, but I honestly don't have a problem with it. I think that's going to be pretty good. I love an SSD Diamond Pro. I love an Amazon Dig Box. We know how I feel about megalithics. That's my favorite brush motor in the entirety of the world. I will make no changes to this whatsoever betwixt now and when we meet again, because I'm taking you along for the whole ride. People have said, give me a deep dive. You're going to get the deepest dive. There is every chance in the world that episode 2 of It Came From the Workbench, volume 57, is nothing but me sorting drag link and panhard over and over and over again until it's right. How does that sit? Is that axle at an angle yet? No. Let me see. You gotta kind of manhandle it into position. I don't know. That's 40? 40? Okay. I'm jumping ahead a little bit. That would be about 100. And then that would be about 95. Are we straight on the steering? About 95. Oh man! If one of the swing downs fits. Oh my goodness! Wait, where is that? I need to see something. Just off the rail. Oh. Rough looks. We're working on about between a 3 and 5 millimeter differential, looking at it rough, between drag-link panhard. You want them to be the same length. You want them the same length. You want them parallel this way. You want them parallel this way, one in front of the other. Oh man, we're gonna get close. We're gonna get really, really close. And yeah, it's gonna be a 90. Could maybe get away with 95s, but we're probably going to start on 90s. We didn't pick a shock because there's no point in picking a shock. The geometry picks the shock. Don't get attached to a shock. If you're doing something like this, the shock is what the shock is. If you're building a vehicle from a kit or you're modifying an RTR, the length of that shock was chosen for a reason. And you generally have a couple millimeters, I would say plus or minus 5, if you're dealing with chassis mounted steering, before you throw all things wonderful right out the window. If you're running BTA or servo on axle, you have a lot more flexibility with how much you can, but in general, geometry is looking for a shock. Like I said, the suspension chooses the layout. The links choose the shocks. There's only one thing we need to see before we part ways today, and that is, do those fender wells sit down on top of these tires? I don't know if you're worried, but I am, because I'm really happy with the link lengths. Pretty much all around, what did we say, 108 and a half? 147 and a half. Oh, that's 39 millimeters in differential. There ain't nothing wrong with that. I have experimented in the past on rigs of what I call cheating forward, where you move the skid backwards. Like you put, I've done it on 10 Pros. You put shorter links in the front and pull the front axle as far back into the chassis as you can, because this does effectively make the rear links longer. Well, it makes the differential between the two longer, so the rears behave as if they are longer. I am loving how this is sitting down. It's got the no panhard twist on it because we've only got one front upper link. All this chassis wants to do is fall to that side. Dun 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 dun. Straight down. Look at that slammy boy. Slammed. Now, we'll take a little look. We'll take a little look-see, quick-see. Can we get this to approximate? That's maybe a little bit below level. That's a little bit below where I would ordinarily be sitting, but oh, that's pretty good. And what we have is we've got the body sitting sky high, a mile high. I would most likely be cutting up, like here's that belt line. I don't want to go above that belt line in the cuts, but look at that slab. Look at that meaty flank. If we cut that up, the body will drop down. As it sits right now, we've probably got 40 millimeters between the top of the rear shock tower and the bed. And then in the front, there's 25 millimeters, probably close, around an inch. That is looking, it needed the links. I was not convinced. I was wholly unconvinced when slapping it all together. And we do also have to take another thing into consideration. If you were yelling it at your screen, thank you. I'm glad you were doing so. So this is probably going to go the unfortunate way. We don't like it, but we have to deal with it. We can only go so low as the servo. Okay, the servo's about 10 millimeters higher than the shock tower, so we can drop this body like 15 millimeters, which is honestly great. Yeah, because I have around 25 millimeters in the front and around 30 millimeters in the rear that I can cut these fender wells up to get them to clear. We will cut them up the exact amount that they need to be. We're not going to cut any additional amount off of it. That looks, honestly, for what amounts to the first day of build, this is tremendous. I'm quite pleased with what we have so far. I'm pleased that you stayed along for the entirety of the journey. Somebody said, show us more. We're going to show you more. You're going to walk the whole process, no matter how iterative it gets. So, thank you for that. Thank you for coming back and watching part 2. Preemptive thankings. I hope that in between now and when we meet again, you want to all do your very best to have a good one, everybody. We'll see you again here from the canyon with this guy, chosen by the community. Someone suggested Black Mirror as the name because it's a choose-your-own-adventure. That's not bad. That's not bad at all. We'll see where it ends up. Hopefully we'll all do it together. I will see you in the next one, all of you that return. And do your best to have a good one, everybody. Do that for me. If you only do one thing for me, do your very best to have a good one, everybody. I and this guy, or whatever else is the topic of the day, will see you in the next one. Yep, that's all I got for you now.